Hi guys, is chocolate all that it's cracked up to be? Hi, I'm Bernice Hunt and I am a brain health specialist. I work with women just like you who are starting to notice a few memory issues, and I help you to stay sharp so that as you age, you can still travel, have fun with your grandkids, and experience new adventures without missing a beat. So, as my question stated, is chocolate all that it's cracked up to be? As a wellness coach for over 12 years, I've encouraged people to actually try chocolate or berries when they want to have something sweet. However, you can't just eat any chocolate, and you can't just eat as much of it as you want. Now, did you catch my last video? Because my last video talked about the different kinds of chocolate. So if you missed that, you can go catch it. It's on my Facebook page. It's also on my YouTube channel, Keep Your Brain Sharp, so you can find it there. But today I wanted to talk specifically about the benefits that your brain receives from eating chocolate, as well as some of the concerns we have with chocolate. Okay, so let's get started. So let's start with the benefits. Here's the deal. First of all, you need to be eating the right kind of chocolate. But if you're eating the right kind of chocolate, it is definitely a superfood. Chocolate is full of good stuff for your brain. It has the flavonoids. It have all those protective properties, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, anti-this, anti-that, all of these antis. Very, very good for you. The flavonoids are. And did you know that chocolate has more antioxidants than practically any other kind of food? It has more antioxidants than blueberries, which is very good for your brain. It has more antioxidants than green tea. It has more antioxidants than red wine. It is loaded with antioxidants that's wonderful for your brain. It also has a lot of minerals. It's loaded with minerals as well. And it even has some protein. So when we're talking the right kind of chocolate, it is a superfood. It can do a lot to support your brain health. Okay, but what do we mean by the right kind of chocolate? We're basically not talking about cacao. We're talking about cacao, which is the bean that they use to make chocolate, but it doesn't have all those other stuff added to it. It's just the raw bean that's been crushed or grinded to make a powder or broken up to make bits. And it's raw cacao. Now, if you can't do the cacao because it doesn't have any sugar in it, you may go with dark chocolate, as long as that dark chocolate is at least 75% cacao. The percentage on those bars represent the amount of cacao bean that's actually in that bar. So you want at least 75% or above. And that's going to be good for you, as well as can supply you with a lot of things. So it's raw cacao, or it is 75% or above dark chocolate. So those are the kind of the chocolate that we're talking about, okay? Because that is what's going to do the most for your brain. However, there are also some concerns with chocolate that you do need to know about. You know, all the glitters is not gold, I guess. You do need to know about some of the concerns. So I want to talk about that as well, okay? The main thing is chocolate can be damaging if you misuse it. So how can you misuse chocolate? We're going to talk about that. Okay, one way you misuse it is by eating the wrong kind. We just talked a little bit about that. Eating the wrong kind of chocolate can actually harm you rather than hurt you. Also, over-indulging. Too much of a good thing can also turn the tide for you, as well as disregarding certain conditions that you may have that may warrant you backing up a little bit off all that chocolate. Okay, so we're going to get into those things. So first of all, once again, what's the wrong kind? So we told you what the right kind is. So the wrong kind, we're talking about any dark chocolate that's below 75%. We're talking about milk chocolate, which has a very little bit of cacao in it. And we're talking about white chocolate, which I always wondered about. Well, how is chocolate white? Actually, it has 0 cacao in there. So it has no cacao bean in there. So it has none of the antioxidants or flavonoids or anything in there. So you don't want that. It's not actually chocolate. It's just called chocolate because they use the fat from the fats from the bean in it with a whole bunch of sugar. In fact, they tell me that one of the regulations for white chocolate is that it has to be at least 55% sugar. You should know right then, you don't need to be eating that. Whether it has cacao in it or not, you don't need to be eating that. You're just eating a mouthful of sugar. Anyway, we'll get off of that. But so that's the wrong kind of chocolate. But there are some things you need to know about in terms of the wrong kinds of things. So the kind of chocolate used. Now, why are those things the wrong kind of chocolate? Basically because they are highly processed foods. And we've talked a lot about highly processed foods. They get processed under real high temperatures. And at high temperature, guess what happens to the cacao nutrients? 90% of the antioxidants get killed with those high temperatures. So you think you're getting something that's a superfood. It is no longer a superfood. It may have at one time been a superfood, but it ain't a superfood no more because you just killed up all the antioxidants when you put it in all that high heat. Okay, so it's highly processed. But then after they highly process it and kill off all the antioxidants, they add sugar, they add fat, they add milk to it, they add other things like emulsifiers, which is food glue to make it stay stuck together. And all that adds up to even more calories than you had when you started out with the chocolate, which is not a low calorie food in itself, but now you just added all these other calories to it. So those are some reasons why you don't want to use those kind of chocolates. Also, the brand of chocolate that you're using matters because the food manufacturers, you know how they do. They try to get people to get their product. And so they're going to play around with the proportions of fat and sugar and all that stuff that they put in there. So different brands have different proportions. And so you have to be careful of which ones you're going to buy. Also, I was looking at a survey that they did. They took a survey where they rated the worst candies. And as healthy as cacao is, the top 3 out of the top 5 candies that were the most unhealthy were well-known chocolate bars. If I said the name of them, you would know them. Well-known chocolate bars. So they have taken that cacao and they have destroyed it so much that now it's listed among the top 5 of the worst things you can eat, which is really sad. Really sad to do that to a superfood. Okay, so the brand really matters as well. Also, contamination. There's certain metals like lead and cadmium that can get into the chocolate, which is why, one of the reasons why they do not recommend that children or pregnant mothers eat chocolate every day. Because over the length of time, if you're eating chocolate constantly all the time, that gets in your system and that can do damage to your kidneys. They said they're talking about suppressing immune systems and high blood pressure and those kind of things if you're regularly eating those things and it's accumulating in your body. So look, the contamination is one reason why you need to slow your roll when it comes to chocolate. But I also need to talk about cooking because this is something that I didn't think about, but it makes perfectly good sense because, okay, so if you're going to be, diligent and you're going to get raw cacao and you're going to take it home and that's what you're going to use for your chocolate, good for you. So, but you need to be careful because we said that high heat destroys the antioxidants, right? Okay, so if high heat destroys the antioxidants, you don't want to get home and heat it up under high temperatures. So the food manufacturers didn't destroy it. Then you went home and destroyed it yourself. Still no good. So they suggest you can still cook it, but just be careful. You don't want the temperature to go over 110 degrees Fahrenheit because at that point it starts killing off the antioxidants. So they're talking specifically about hot chocolate because that's how I make my hot chocolate. I heat up my almond milk and then I put cacao powder in it. And I was putting the cacao powder in there and stirring it all up as it was heating up on the stove. Wrong. Okay. It suggested that you heat your milk or water, whatever you're using for your liquid up, and then take it off the heat and let it cool down to like 110. They said that the hot water you get out of your faucet is usually about 105 degrees. So that gives you an idea of how hot, if you feel it, don't burn yourself, but how hot it can be. Okay. And they said, so you let it cool down and then you stir in the cacao powder so that you're not destroying the nutrients when you add it to the warmed milk or water. So I'm going to try that because I don't want to defeat my purpose. I want the nutrients. That's why I bought it. Okay. So That's one thing. So also, I know when you're baking and stuff, it's a little harder, but as much as possible, they said try to sprinkle your cacao over things instead of, and you can put it in smoothies and then it's no heat at all. So to keep it unheated as much as possible, so you're not destroying the nutrients, but it's still better than using the milk chocolate and the other things. But that's just so you know, we want the best for ourselves, don't we? So that's so you know. Okay. So that has to do with the wrong kind. So we want to also talk about over-indulging, which and I know can be easy to do when it comes to chocolate, unless you're one of the people that don't like chocolate, which I have a friend that does not like chocolate. But most of us like chocolate and it's easy to overindulge. Okay. So we want to talk a little about that because that's important too. But here's the good news. If you start using cacao and 75% or above dark chocolate, it makes it a little harder to overindulge because guess what? That stuff is bitter. It is not as sweet as the milk chocolate and definitely not the white chocolate, but it's not really sweet. And so it makes it a little easier not to overindulge on that stuff. Okay. So that's the good news. But just because it's healthy does not mean that it should be your go-to snack or your evening dessert every night, because you don't want to overindulge. The recommended amount that they suggest that you use is 1 ounce a day. And 1 ounce is going to be about 2 tablespoons of the powder. If you're doing cacao powder, about 2 tablespoons a day, and limit yourself to that. And they said that is safe for you. And that's going to also give your brain what it needs as well. And remember, a calorie is a calorie. Like I said, chocolate is not considered low cal. And so you don't want to overindulge because the excess sugar that you might be consuming if you're doing the other kind of chocolates is going to be detrimental to your brain. Okay. So where the cacao is going to help your brain in several ways, the milk chocolate and those kind of chocolates are detrimental. Okay. So we want the excess sugar. Yep. Can cause you to have poor cognitive functioning. It can impair your memory. Okay. It can increase your risk for Alzheimer's. All right. It can give you poor quality of sleep at night, and it can help you gain weight, right? We know that you know that, okay? And mood swings, the other things they can do, versus the cacao is just like the opposite. Yeah, it gives you better memory. It helps you have a more positive mood. Yeah, it does positive things for you. It increases your attention, your focus, that kind of thing. Yeah, so those are what you want with the cacao. The other kind of chocolate with the excess sugar is going to do the opposite of that, okay? And it has caffeine in it, whether it's cacao or whether it's milk chocolate or whatever chocolate you're using. It has caffeine. Now, caffeine, it has about half less than the coffee, but it still has caffeine. And people handle caffeine differently. Some of us can handle it better than others. And the time of day matters a lot for most of us. And so you have to keep that in mind also when you're dealing with chocolate, because that caffeine is a stimulant. Okay. Now with the addictive part, it does give you a feel-good pleasure because it triggers those feel-good hormones in your brain. Okay. So it's easy to see why people can get addicted to it, because it does make you feel better. It increases in your mood. Okay. It's pleasurable. And so it might be easy for you to get addicted to it. But the rule of thumb still means that you should aim for 1 ounce a day, no more than that. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about are the special conditions that are connected to chocolate, because you need to know who you are. Not everyone, needs to eat chocolate every day, not even if it's only an ounce, because it depends on certain conditions. For example, certain medical conditions where you're taking certain medications, you don't want to be having chocolate every day, okay? Because the mineral we talked about, it has a lot of minerals. One of the minerals is phosphorus. And so we don't want it to affect your kidneys. If you have kidney issues, you're not supposed to be having a lot of that. We don't want, if you're on blood pressure medications, some of the medications may be affected by something that's in the chocolate. And so the best thing for you to do if you have on medications or certain conditions is to check with your doctor. If you're on chemo treatments, you need to check with your doctor to see if, probably not going to be having chocolate every day, but see, limit yourself even more severely to the times that you have chocolate. Also, pregnant women and kids should not be having chocolate every day. So if you fall into those categories, you need to check with your doctor. Or if you have any condition, medical condition, check with your doctor to make sure that you can have it, or how regularly he suggests that you do have it. Okay. All right. So here's my question to you. Are you a chocoholic? You can go ahead, hold a candle, whatever you want to do. Are you a chocoholic? Because a lot of us are. I'm not, but I do love chocolate, but I'm not a chocoholic. But if you are a chocoholic, you can do better. And I have a handout in my research library that talks about beating chocolate addiction. And it gives you several tips for things you can do. One of it, is to know what your limit is, kind of thing. Several things that you can do to help you not give in to those urges to have chocolate every day, or to have so much more chocolate than you need to be eating, or to pig out on milk chocolate when you should be really having cacao, those kind of things. And so if you're interested in that, it's in my resource library, and you can get that free access to that on my website. If you don't already have free access to it, you can just go to my website, keepyourbrainsharp.com, for free access to my research library. In that library, you're going to see a whole bunch of different things, a whole bunch of different handouts, but I have placed the one beating chocolate addictions in there for you. Okay. But you need to know that if you get the green light, from your doctor, and you don't have to worry about those conditions, that chocolate, not any kind of chocolate, but specifically raw cacao or 75% dark chocolate, is very beneficial for your brain, and your brain's destiny is in your hands.